Man, we was getting into it.
No, that doesn't even make sense to me. No, I swear it must have gotten hit again. I don't understand. That was weird to me.
Bro, I was feeling some type of way. I was getting into it, man.
Yeah, my bad. I don't. I'm totally surprised about that. I could have swore I hit the. Because you even said, are we on? And I was like, what? Right? Because I
Yeah,
thought I had
yeah,
unpaused it,
yeah.
and that was kind of crazy. Oh, you know what? No, you know what? I think I did record. No, I must have. I don't know. That was weird. I must have done something. I don't know how that happened.
The moment has passed.
It has.
Yeah, I was feeling some type of way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I was feeling some type of way like that, and it bothers me. And I have no problem going in on it because it bothers me. These are things that I might not necessarily type on social media, and sometimes they are. But so many times I'll type something and then hit delete.
Right.
Most of the things that make it there are because I chose not to say so many other things.
Sure.
I've toiled over it, and came to the conclusion like, nah, I'm not gonna say it. Why would I be so judgmental? I consider myself to be a hypocrite, even though I think that I'm surrounded by people that accept their cowardice. Courage is what you do in the face of fear. There's nothing wrong with being afraid.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do in the face of that fear? You said something to me, Mike. You said, when we had a similar conversation before, that as a party, right, we need to be better,
Yeah.
which means
Better
the
than we are now, or better than what?
better than we are now, better than
Yes.
we've ever been before.
Okay.
What that starts with is self-reflection, introspection, and scrutiny.
Hmm.
Like, we have to scrutinize ourselves. This is
Yeah.
art of war.
Yeah.
Know your enemy, know yourself.
And see, I think this is where they say it's the art of war. So we gotta win, and we gotta pool all of our resources, and we gotta beat these guys, and then we can reflect more and improve ourselves. But if we're beating ourselves down too much before we get to November 3rd or 4th, and we lose, it's going to be because we didn't have each other's backs. We were too busy being overly critical of each other.
See, and that's where people are understating and certainly misinterpreting or not using the full understanding of the art of war. That's just what it comes down to. They're piecemealing it. They're using a part or portion of it as it suits them, but they're not really understanding. It's like reading a religious tome and just understanding the surface text, or reading a bit of philosophy and just taking what you think applies to a given situation, and not taking the context, or taking the entire piece of work, and using it to really fully understand what it is you're applying it to. And what I mean is, when I say know your enemy, know yourself, if you only know your enemy, you only have half a victory. When you go into war, you have to highlight your weaknesses. You have to know what weaknesses you are bringing into that war. When you go into battle, you have to be cognizant of the weaknesses that you have.
Yeah.
In this battle between liberals and conservatives, liberals don't even talk. If it wasn't an election season, we still wouldn't be talking about our weaknesses. We still would not be willing to critically examine our own flaws. We would be saying, well, the conservatives do this. Okay, well, what about this? When it wasn't an election season, why didn't we address the fact that a marginalized group discriminates against another marginalized group? Why is this not a talking point? Why does the room, not you, Mike, why does the room go hush and the crickets get the floor?
Well, DMX said it best. Preacher telling the truth and it hurts. You know, people don't want that. People don't want that hurt. They don't want to They don't want to get hot under the collar like that. They don't want to have to examine themselves and their neighbors.
So they, what you're saying is that they really want to leave chapters of the art of war on the table.
I
They just
suppose
want to leave
so.
these chapters on the table.
Maybe they don't know that those chapters exist.
It's like rose-colored glasses. And for me, when I go to war, I want to win. Bro,
Yep.
I want to win, which
Yep.
means I need to know what my weaknesses are and what my strengths are.
Hmm.
I need to recognize them and I need to work on those areas that I'm weak or figure out how to use these weaknesses for gain.
Right. Well, I think that's what they've done is they've said this is one of our weaknesses, all this infighting, not being able to agree on the same thing. Like on the right, you have big issues that people corral around, whether it's you know right to life, whether it's you know not wanting trans folks to like use the bathroom of the gender that they're you know that they're comfortable with, um, whether it's like all of these like issues that have been used to divide. The right unites around, and they can even get people to go against their own interest because they're getting them to focus on certain hot button issues. So we're over here fighting each other on, who was a conservative 20 years ago, or, who had a job 15 years ago that we didn't like. And it's like, yo, what are we going to do differently this time? So they're like, maybe this time we're not going to fight each other and keep criticizing each other. We're going to do what the other side does and all corral around the same candidates until we get a win. And then when we're in there, then we can start criticizing and improving. So to them, they are using some kind of strategy. Maybe they don't call it art of war. Maybe they call it something else, but they are trying to do something different than what was done before. And they see that what was done before was all the infighting, not backing each other up. I mean, one thing that they did, they all backed Biden, and it was surprising, right? From Warren to Kamala to like everyone, one by one, all through their support behind Biden. Now, whether or not we agree with that isn't the point. The point was there was a strategy, there was an execution, and they did it, and it was successful enough that Biden blew Bernie away at one point because he had all those chips stacked on his side, and Bernie just couldn't. Bernie just couldn't mess with that. Bernie was getting a third of the vote, and Biden was getting over half. And even if even if Bernie had gotten all of Warren's votes, that still would have only been like 44% to like Biden's over 50, 56 or whatever's left, of that pie. So he still, even if all of Warren's people had gone over to Bernie, still wouldn't have been enough. So you see, Biden was over there getting each and every person to throw all of their votes, so that even if Bernie was like, "Come on, Elizabeth, we're cool, we're friends. If I lose, you get my votes. If you lose, you get mine," that still wouldn't have mattered because Biden had them all lined up. That's strategy. He
So
out, he
from a,
out, you know, he outbattled. He outbattled. He won the war there.
so from a point of politics, absolutely excellent point. That's what it is. From a layman's perspective, the strategy is backwards, not the point of politics strategy, the one that you just described, the one that you described prior about, the infighting and let's not critique ourselves till after the fact. That is backwards think to me. Not from you, but if that's the general consensus in on the liberal side of things, that's backwards think to me, because what we're ignoring is why we're infighting. We're choosing by not critiquing to get to the source of why we're infighting and fixing the problem at the source. The source is something you said. Conservatives rally around a thing in order to get their candidate elected. What we do is parcel out equality rather than just rallying around equality. This is something I've been consistent on. You've heard me say it before. We just don't rally around equality. We parcel it out to different groups. So then these different groups find themselves competing for their piece of the equality pie. Yes, I want to be concerned for the LGBT community, but I'm black. So I'm going to put the concerns on the table that I have that most matter to me first. Yes, I want to rally around black people, but I'm a member of, the Latinx community. So I'm going to put the concerns that most concern me first, when the fact of the matter is we should just put equality on the table and stand with each other.
Yeah.
And that's to me the root of the problem, is that equality, the biggest issue. You could sum up every issue that liberals have under equality on some level. It's some level it branches off or it roots off from equality.
Sure.
Be it economic, be it representation, be it what have you. And so if this is the root, then in critiquing ourselves, we should be able to question why this marginalized group has, discriminates against this marginalized group. We need to question these things so that we get to the source, and then we strategize from a platform of strength. Because that's why I said backwards think, because it's strategizing from a platform of weakness. Literally, we've recognized our weaknesses and we're going to say, let's just ignore that until we win. So then our strategy is founded on a platform of weakness. We're not fixing the problem. We're just going to put a Band-Aid on it, on a wound, because we've been duped into parceling out equality.
Okay, so speaking of strategy and coming together on these issues, I briefly mentioned to you that this character, Eamon Bundy, is now coming out saying he's in support of Black Lives Matter, which was a huge surprise. I put a GIF of I always forget if it's GIF or GIF. I put a GIF of pigs flying, because this is like, he's one of these militia guys, and one of these militia guys finally gets it and says, yeah, man, Black Lives Matter. And then he starts saying why he supports them, saying, yeah, they're going against, like, he starts saying he supports defunding the police. He went that far, and he was like, yeah, the police, the government, these are like big entities that are like messing with our freedom. And like, he got it. And then he said, but my friends, my comrades, they don't really understand Black Lives Matter. They don't really get it. So this guy put himself out there like, yeah, I agree with Black Lives Matter. Yeah, I agree with defunding the police. This is kind of what we were fighting for when we were on that ranch, going head to head with the government. We didn't believe in them exerting their power on us like that. And he drew the parallel, and he said, but a lot of my comrades don't understand Black Lives Matter is fighting for a similar cause. And I'm like, this looks like an opportunity to me. To me, this looks like an opportunity to build a coalition across differences. Of course, we're not going to understand everything that they do, and the average Black person might be like, who are these crazy rednecks with their guns on this ranch trying to go against the police? But when you look to the heart of the matter, we have some similarities. And we should be able to back each other up, right? I always like had the joke like, man, if only every black person could have a white person right there on the passenger seat, so that every time they get pulled over, the white person could just talk to the cop or put their body in the way and make sure the cops didn't shoot them, right? Because they're not getting shot at the same instance. Or if during every rally or march we could have white guys with guns, militiamen, who seem to get a lot of respect from the cops, and who are, even when they're pointing their weapons in the direction of the cops, they are not getting shot. I'm like, yeah, if somehow we could band together so they could just help protect us. Now that's obviously a little bit pie in the sky kind of thinking, but there's something there. There's something there, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what I think it is. I want to say something, and I want to put that aside, but I want it to be said. I am skeptical, for sure, of this guy's true motivations, but I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to
Okay.
say this. What I think is there, if this guy is being genuine, is when you said there are some similarities there, there's a fundamental similarity, right? Which is altruistic truth. So I'll say that I've said, and I've criticized people, if you have principles and your principles lean a certain way, then those principles should apply across the boards.
That's right. Yeah.
So what I mean is, when you are in pursuit of altruistic truth, it means that when you come across things that go against what you have believed or what you have known to be true, when you come across them and they go against those things, you accept them because your pursuit is altruistic truth. You don't stop short of what you believe to be true when confronted with something that kind of goes against it and says that what you believe, you can't use confirmation bias or the opposite of confirmation bias, right? You can't look for the altruistic truth by finding things that support what you already believe.
Right.
When a scientist comes up with an experiment, they prove it to the best of their understanding to be true. A part of that process is finding ways to disprove it
Right.
in order to conclude that is the truth. So in this guy's instance, if he genuinely believes that he was fighting for the things that he said he was fighting for, whether he even understands Black Lives Matter does not matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as he understands the altruistic truth in Black Lives Matter's position,
Right.
it's the
Yeah.
same as his. Is
Yeah.
from what you're telling me he's saying. It's
Yep.
the same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then his principles have to apply across the boards.
Yeah. No, this was a mind blowing moment. I had to check to make sure this was not an onion piece, to make sure this was not a, some kind of satire. Like, this was a mind blowing moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of amazing. I wonder, because people have been saying this about the NRA for years. Why didn't the NRA show up when Philando Castile, was blown away, when he just had his perfectly legal, gun on him, and that he even told them, yes, I have a gun on me, I have a licensed weapon, you know, I can show you whatever paperwork. Why was that used as an excuse to kill him? Why isn't the NRA jumping out of the woodwork saying, hey man, this guy was a gun-toting, red-blooded American. This is who we stand for. This is what we're about. How come they're not standing up and doing marches for Philando, but they're doing marches every time a kid is killed?
Why don't I could make the same arguments. If I was a conservative, I'd be that conservative that would be critical of conservatives. I've said to people when they were like, well, Ish, how come Black people don't do this or these people don't do that? And I'm like, how come conservatives don't do anything about the KKK?
Yeah.
Why don't you do anything about radical groups that co-align with you, that certainly preach a message that you tell me you don't agree with? Like, where do your principles come into play in these instances and in regards to these things?
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with me politically, but we all agree on equality, or so we say. So why are you compelled to condemn victims, but you never find yourself condemning perpetrators? That's how I would feel if I was a conservative. Before I go condemn this victim, what are we doing about these people over here that make us look bad?
Right.
That speak to things and espouse things and promote things that we do not accept, because we say in principle we don't accept. We have no problem saying we're not racist, that everybody is the same. And yet we allow these people to proliferate messages that make us look bad. And on some level, we co-sign them because we question the victims. I don't know. I certainly think the beginning of warfare is making sure your uniform is in order, and
Yeah.
that everything is dress right dress. You understand what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
everything is locked and cocked.
Yeah.
That's what I think the beginning of warfare is. Like, I
Yeah.
want to make sure my uniform is in order.
Sure. So, I mean, where my mind goes is we've been marching, we've been crying, we've been lamenting, we've been going to funerals and one after another, usually one of our young black boys, but also black women, trans women, like black folks we're getting shot.
Latinx people.
Latinx people, yeah, Native American folks, a few white folks
Yeah, poor
sprinkled in
poor
there
white people. Poor
as
white
well.
people.
So,
All of it is egregious to me. I'm my heart is broken for white people in poverty who go through some of the same things that we go through.
right. But my point
Yeah.
is we've been doing the same shit, and it's not improving, and it's really getting heavier and heavier to accept. So when shit started popping off this year, I was really enthusiastic. Um, Maybe that's not the right word, but I mean, I was a little surprised. Yeah, I was. I mean, I was enthusiastic. I was inspired. Maybe it's a better word, because at least it felt like there was some momentum building, and it wasn't just the same cycle of complaining, post on Facebook for a few days, get sad about the latest shooting, and then a few days later, now we can't even really remember a few shootings ago because there's another one to talk about and another one, and it's like now we have to you know I I mentioned we did that trivia or whatever, and I was like, we should make sure all these names are memorized and people, and I'm sure some people do have memorized already, but this is part of a living history. We should be remembering these names, and of course, I mean, how many of them are there going to be, right? That's going to be a lot of memorization, but now I'm seeing something different started to happen. Now it's now there's uprisings in more cities, more states. Now it's the whole country. And then one day I wake up and I see my cousin who lives in Canada posting stuff. And then I realized he wasn't even in Canada at the time. I think he was in Poland or something. And then all of a sudden it's worldwide. And then it's going for weeks and weeks and over a month and a couple of months. And now we got this Ammon Bundy guy saying, I agree with BLM, which is amazing. So it's how do we keep the momentum going and take it to the next level and build these strong coalitions of people who can use their privilege to their advantage, but our advantage, and help, inoculate us from the punishment and the pain that's being dealt to us on a regular basis. There was a woman who stood naked in front of the cops during a protest, and they kind of backed down. They didn't really know what to do, right? And that was a thing that happened. That was an interesting thing. And like, imagine the same thing these Bundy militiamen at protest, and the cops like not knowing what to do. There's some kind of profound respect they have for militia people, where they don't want to shoot them. So imagine us, building those bridges and building these multicultural movements
You
where
use
we
the
all
right
have each
term.
other's backs.
You use the right term, build bridges. But
Yeah,
along with building bridges, in order to maintain and be able to continue to move forward, we also need to repair bridges.
yeah, we got to repair relationships.
Yes.
Yeah,
We have to repair relationships within, you know, not just our culture, but, all of the different cultures that, are aligned with us, right?
yeah,
At least in principle. We
yeah.
just need to repair some relationships.
Well, to me, what Eamon did was he came to our. It's almost like he came to our hood with like a piece of bread or a pie.
An olive branch, so to
Yeah,
speak.
exactly, and took the first step. Of course, we're looking at him with a lot of skepticism. Who is this white boy coming to the hood? Does he have some ulterior motives? Is he real? We're looking at him, but also there's some opportunity there if it is real.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I think that we are at a point in history. People downplay things. I don't think people really see beyond the scope of, what is current. So people downplay things. Like, people don't really understand the full scope of what Colin Kaepernick did.
Mm.
They don't understand what his impact on history will be, because we're living in these moments. So they don't see down the road. Down the road, Colin Kaepernick will be greater than what he is considered now. These moments, these days that we're living in, will be written down in history books.
I think he'll be
You know,
like greater than like Muhammad Ali, or
oh,
maybe
oh,
on
oh,
equal
oh,
footing.
he is the Muhammad Ali of this generation.
Sure, for sure.
You know, the ripple effect from what he did, we are seeing today. I'm not saying he is the catalyst. I'm saying he is a catalyst.
Sure, sure.
When this era of history is written about, which it will be, his name will be attached to it. It just will be.
Right.
If it's written the way it should be written, his
Yeah.
name has to be attached to it. You never really consider that a guy who gets choked out for selling cigarettes, who gets choked to death for selling cigarettes, is going to become a part of a block of history. But he is. Trayvon Martin will be a part of a block of history. When you describe the 20th century and the turmoil that took place in the 10 years from 2010 to 2020, you're going to be describing Black people being killed by cops. You're going to be describing Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and polarizing the entire nation. You're going to be describing the advent of the greatest movement in the history of our country, be it Black Lives, be it, I'm talking about Black Lives Matter. And what I mean by that is, because of social media, and all these things are going to be coupled together, but because of social media, you had millions of people mobilized. This is unprecedented. Hasn't happened before. All over the nation, and on some levels, the world. This has never happened before. All of these things coupled together create a chain that, when you look at Barack Obama going into Donald Trump's administration, these are things, along with COVID, these are things that are going to be discussed because these are the most relevant political topics of the day.
For
And
sure.
Colin Kaepernick will be directly tied into that. People can downplay him, they can diminish him, they can, they can say whatever they want, and they will find out in 20 years that their opinion was on the wrong side of history's opinion. It's just the case. I'm calling it. It is what it is. Like, this is how history works. Martin Luther King wasn't Martin Luther King until years removed from his death.
Oh, for sure, for sure, for sure. And now look at how they try to use his words, and like, right wing folks try to use his words and misconstrue and like paint him as some kind of like softy who wasn't, you know, down for the struggle and fighting against a government that was against him. I mean, here's a man who knew he was going to die,
Mm-hmm.
and still continued with his speeches. He was getting death
Here's a
threats
man
left and
who
right.
gets here's a man who gets downplayed by his own people, who can't for some reason seem to recognize how brilliant of a strategist this man was.
Right.
One of the greatest strategists in the history of America. Period. He was a brilliant strategist who, forgive me, people, for speaking him up the way that I'm speaking him up. It may upset some people, who used his, listen, he did what he had to do. He put people on the front lines that were going to be beat. He did what he had to do. He attacked economy. He used their religion, their politics, and I'm talking about.
You cut out. You cut out. You're cutting out. I didn't hear. Wait, I can't hear you. Last thing I heard was their religion. I still can't hear you. Okay, now I got you. You're back.
He used their religion,
Uh-huh.
their law,
Mhm.
their tactics, and he attacked their economic infrastructure.
Right.
And he used people to do it. It's something that we talked about before. Change does not come with comfort. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
History tells me as much.
Yeah. Your body tells you.
As liberals, and this is the reason why, I don't care who gets pissed when I say this. This is the reason why the term snowflake was coined. And this is the only time that I think it's applicable when you're talking about liberals, because more often than not, conservatives are snowflakes. I don't even like the term snowflake, but liberals can sure be snowflakes when they get all emotional and emoji about the change that they want to come, but refuse to acknowledge what it's going to take to get that change.
You might have some protesters blocking that bridge on your way to work.
Yep.
You might have some protesters marching in front of that fancy restaurant that you paid to have brunch in.
Preach.
Yeah, you might not get some of your comforts. It's true.
You might not get your comforts. As a matter of fact, it might even look really ugly to you, and you might not understand why. And people may get hurt, and people may lose lives.
And oh my God, businesses might get looted. Oh no. And if you bring up the French Revolution off with their heads, or if you bring up tarring and feathering of the British, or just the Boston Tea Party, oh, that was a long time ago.
I mean, that's the conservative weeping point. That's what they weep over. snowflakes. But then liberals get snowflakish too because they want to talk change. Oh, let's have a talk. What? Oh, why would they do that? Oh, why are we blah blah boo hoo? Like, what are we doing here? You
Yeah.
want to talk change? Like, mobilize. Get out in the street. Get on the ground level and see what look at what you know to be true. Like, you'll get online and you'll give me a quote from this great person who put in the pain, who put in the work. You'll
Or
give
put
me a quote
a
from this great woman who put in the work. She
or
put
put
in pain.
or put a lawn sign in your lawn, right? And then
Yeah.
act like the opposite. Act like the opposite of the lawn sign. You know,
Right.
we used to see that doing our door-to-door grassroots work. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I swear to you, Ish, the people that had all the signs, the anti-war signs and the this sign and that, I'm not gonna get excited about that. I used to see people, you know, usually they'd be relatively newer. Oh, look at that door. I'm gonna get a big contribution, you know, for what we're doing from that door. Like, okay, I wouldn't discourage them. All right, well, you know, keep it in perspective. They may or may not be home, and hopefully, you know, they'll be ready to talk. But just, you know, in my mind, I'm like, you ain't getting shit from that door. Those people don't answer their doors, dude. They're letting their sign do the talking for them. I swear to God, those people look out of their window and they see you and they do not answer the door, dude.
Yo.
The only other sign they're missing is a "Do not talk to me" or "Do not canvas" sign.
Yeah. Don't solicit.
Yep. And people
All
get
of that.
excited. Oh, do you see that big anti-war and oh, you see that Black Lives Matter sign? And like, yeah, those people already feel like they're getting involved enough. They've already done enough. Don't get excited.
Yeah, it is interesting because, you know, and to speak to your point and to also, you know, circle it to mine as well, or link it to mine as well. It's like, don't show me a picture of Rosa Parks and you're a liberal white woman, you're a liberal black woman, you're a liberal Latinx woman, and you're, you know, this woman did, but all you've done is cry on social media. Because what they were willing to do to bring about change, you're riding off of that. Those aren't your wings any more than they're my wings when you show me Malcolm X.
Okay, one 60-second warning. I got my 5 o'clock that I gotta hop on.
All right, we can table it.
Yeah. Do you want to set a goal to be ready around 6?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. So
all
either
right,
look for a link or I'll also warn you.
Okay.
Warn you as well. Okay. All right, cool. All right, good talk. Signing off for now.